EA DICE are flip-flopping harder than your average Aussie wearing thongs on a beach. Flip-flopping more than your average politician, you could say. Or flip-flopping harder than me drinking a whole bottle of whiskey and then attempting intercourse. Yes, that was a sex joke.
The funny thing is you don't drink, so...
Well, far be it from me not to use myself as the butt of a joke. I mean, I use other people as the butt of a joke often enough, but here to discuss this flip-flopping is Mr. Henry I Don't Flop At All Cooper.
You can do the flip-flopping and I'll take the bottle of whiskey and I'll be alone in my room.
Okay, so let's recap this situation. Now, we're talking about Battlefield 5, right? So the game launched in November 18, and in December, 1 year later, they added the War in the Pacific season of content, which added 3 new maps, 14 new vehicles, and 8 new weapons. However, what came with the 5.2 patch was an increase in the TTK. Now, we've covered this in the past. This is the time to kill. Basically, they nerfed all the weapons to make players take longer to kill, because the bullets are less powerful now, apparently. The justification for making these changes at the time was they wanted to make the game more accommodating for new players coming into the game around about Christmas time. They've looked at the stats and they see that people are rage quitting once they get shot from distance and they don't know where the bullets are coming from. So in order to give those players more time to react before they die, they're increasing the TTK to make it a more friendly place for new players coming in with those tasty microtransaction money. However, this was at the expense of veteran players who were pretty much unanimously against the TTK changes. And one specific area of the game that players were not happy was the Firestorm Battle Royale mode. Now, Firestorm got the TTK changes along with the rest of the game, but DICE neglected to balance any of the other parts of Firestorm. And the main problem being that Firestorm players have a base 150 HP as opposed to 100 in the other game types. So with a full set of top tier armor, you'll total 300 HP. That means that if you're in that situation, faced with an enemy with 300 HP, they're completely bullet spongy, and it just takes ages to kill them. Now, YouTuber Fiery Hot Sauce did the maths on this, and based on his gameplay that he recorded, it shows him taking 19 bullets with a weapon called the Bren, and that's including 2 headshots. It would have been 21 without it, he's calculated, to kill an enemy with full armor on. Now, in a previous recording, he's shown that it took 13 bullets to kill with the same weapon, and that was pre the TTK, or pre-weapon nerf. Now, it's not exactly scientific because he was a little bit closer to the target in the video prior to the TTK, but he does estimate that, having done his maths, that at the range of over 100 meters, players effectively have 44% more health than they did prior to 5.2 changes, and some weapons have their minimum damage nearly halved. So you can see how that's just kind of messed up the total ecosystem of the Firestorm and how players have been playing that.
Yeah, especially after it came with a good bunch of content with the new maps and weapons and stuff, and then the TTK, which is the fundamentals of the game, got completely screwed up. But with a new update, they're planning to change things, not entirely back to the way they were, but almost there. And this is going to be in update 6.0, and that's going to be rolling back some of these weapon nerfs, which they've already rolled back in the past, hence the major flip-floppage.
Yeah, this is the fourth flop, isn't it?
The fourth time.
So is it the flip or the flop now?
I don't know. I think we're on the flop.
Okay.
So let's say 0 is when the game launches. There's no flipping or flopping. That's just a shoe. The game launches in November 2018. The first flip comes when they change the TTK in December 2018. Then there's your first flop, or your second flip-flop, or whatever you want to call it, to remove all those changes and apologize for everything. We're not doing it again. And they did that literally 1 week later. Number 3, another flip, was patch 5.2, which we just talked about, which brought back the reduced damage and TTK changes, and that was in December 2019. And now number 4, the flop, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last flip or flop, patch 6.0 reverts things back to the way they were, but sort of not really. Now, according to a Reddit community broadcast from user Part Welsh, who is their community manager over at DICE, it says, in close quarters, much of the same recoil and rate of fire that you're previously accustomed to will return. So that's things but prior to the 5.2 patch. We will continue to operate a damage model that ensures that weapons that are designed to be lethal at close quarters will do less damage beyond 30 meters than experienced in 5.0. However, we're making adjustments to the damage curves to ensure that damage drop-off doesn't feel as instant or severe. Weapons that should be more effective at range, such as semi-auto rifles and pistol carbines, will have their damage drop-offs extended, ensuring that they regain a purpose closer to their design and perform significantly better at range. So essentially, short-range weapons are going to be nerfed at range. That makes makes sense. But long-range weapons like rifles are going to still be effective at range, but the damage drop-off the further they get away isn't going to be as severe. So if they're 1 meter away, it's not going to do loads of different damage compared to what it did previously. That doesn't go all the way back to the same settings as 5.0, but it's almost there. But the thing is, none of this is coming straight away. This is coming actually in 6.2, not 6.0, and we have no idea when that will be. This whole announcement is an announcement.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. And it's very convenient that they've just managed to kind of nerf the guns for the Christmas period. And like the Christmas kind of rush has kind of worn off, you could say now. And it was our suspicions going into this nerf in the first place that this is what they were doing to try and accommodate the influx of new players around Christmas, to try and make them stay around longer, to spend more money. And it's very convenient that they're going back to the old kind of way. Well, not exactly, but they're going back to strengthening the weapons a little bit, because all the casuals have gone now with all the money.
It's funny because the first nerf, the first flip, if you will, happened around the same sort of time, that Christmas holiday season.
Wow,
but anyway, while this patch fixes that old problem, there are worries that it will present new ones, and the dreaded words pay to win, and it's going to be a dangerous game. And this was brought up by a YouTuber called Jack Frags, and he did a video about kind of breaking down this announcement type thing. And some of the lines that are important to know are: Update 6.0 primarily focuses on providing you with all new content to set the scene for our next chapter. A new map, new weapons, and new gadgets. Oh, awesome. New content, that's exciting, right? But wait, there's more.
But wait! There's more!
In Chapter 6, we'll continue to move weapons and gadgets out of weekly rewards and into chapter rank rewards, as we've seen a great response to that throughout the War in the Pacific. So weekly rewards unlock you new weapons through doing specific challenges. However, chapter rank rewards are your level ups. So when you get to level 10 in this particular chapter, because it resets for every chapter, and this is now chapter 5 going into chapter 6 now. If you get to level 10, you'll then get a new gun. But it previously was just skins, but if weapons are being added, that's gonna be a bit of a problem, because there you can pay for extra XP boosts with real money, and we'll get onto that just in a sec, because that's when things get even more complicated. And the rest of the quote is: we've also tweaked the earn rate of chapter XP at end of round to better reward players who place higher on the scoreboard, to ensure that your performance across the round is better rewarded. This may just be me being very cynical, but better reward to players who place higher sounds like another way of saying worse reward for those who place lower.
Yeah, so more of a grind for people who
if
aren't
you
as
do
good.
really, really well, if you're the best, awesome. You're still getting a better XP, that's great. But everyone below you is getting naff all to incentivize buying these XP boosters in the form of Boins, the inventively named Boins. Boing. So Boins is Battlefield's in-game currency that you can get by paying real money. They have another different currency, I think it's company coins, and that's earnable, but Boins is a separate one. Again, they make it really confusing. That's what you pay for with real money. You used to be able to spend on cosmetics, some of which were unlockable, some of which were exclusive, i.e. paywalled, so add that on the list of dodgy stuff, and can be spent on time savers and XP boosters, as we know. So pay to not play the game you've already bought.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point that Jack Frags brings up. So while you're doing your chapter rank rewards, you're unlocking stuff as you go, right? So it could be like 20 hours before you get to the very last unlocks of that chapter rank, 20 hours of gameplay. And if they've put like a high-powered weapon at the 20-hour mark of gameplay grind, then it means that people who are grinding away, or people who aren't good, are especially going to get take longer now, because they're not getting as rewarded as the players who rank highly in the games. So they're going to take longer than ever, and then they won't get the most powerful weapons for around 20 hours of gameplay. However, if you jump in with a couple of boins and spring around, you boin it up, and you can unlock those straight away without even playing a single game, which brings up, that's pay to win, right?
Exactly.
Essentially.
If the gun at the end of the challenge week, the challenge series, if that gun is better than all the others, and you have the ability to pay for XP boosters to get through the ranks in 10 hours as opposed to 20, that's getting there faster, pay to skip grind. But if that gun is better, that's paying to win, because you get an actual competitive advantage over everybody else.
Yeah, it might only be for those 20 hours, but still, you got your wallet out, you got the better weapons.
And naturally, this didn't go down very well with Reddit, especially as Reddit were pretty pissed off with patch 5.2 anyway, and a lot of this doesn't seem to have quelled many of those criticisms. So the most controversial statement in the whole announcement of this 6.6 update is: we improved the experience that players have when they're being engaged at long distances. So that's saying, what the decision we made that you all hate, We're right. We actually made your experience better, even though you're screaming at us on Twitter and on Reddit that you hate it.
And that's the question, isn't it? Like, who did they improve the experience for? Now, obviously, for the new players, that's a better experience because they don't die as quick. Whereas for the veteran players, that's an objectively worse experience because it takes longer to kill people, and their skill isn't as much as a factor anymore because people can slip away from them because it takes like 19, 23 bullets or whatever to kill someone.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a few different quotes from Reddit here. All of these are in direct response to that specific line. This one guy here, Felingan Oi, said, "You people are delusional if you think this is the case. No one asked for these changes. The only thing you've accomplished with 5.2 is making the gameplay worse and making the players frustrated and unhappy. You were doing so incredibly well at the launch of Pacific, and then you threw it all away, making huge changes that no one asked for. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain by reverting the damage models to what they were before 5.2. Now see, what you're misunderstanding here, Mr. Filligan Oi, or whatever your name was. They will lose all that money that they're going to get from all the microtransactions and Boyne sales in XP boosters. Yeah,
the sheer brazenness of telling the community who's really upset with these changes, we improved it for you.
Where would you be without me?
What were they expecting? I mean, there's so many people have reacted negatively to that one comment. It's a bit of a I don't know. It's just like they just don't understand the community. It's like they're not listening to the community. It's just an example of how they're ignoring people.
Yeah, bringing up the word delusional there is pretty spot on, because these other comments I've got here from RZN said, "Is that honestly the takeaway you have from the feedback provided?" And that's totally right. Like, all of Reddit was screaming that this is bad. All of Twitter was screaming this is bad. But do you still think what you've done is right? Are you being deliberately ignorant, or are you genuinely that delusional? There's another one here from Marmite22. I mean, got Marmite in the name, so you've got to love him or hate him, right? What a joke. That's seriously how you're framing this. This is just out of touch. And one of my favorite things about all of this with Battlefield 5 is how funny the comparison can be between this and Battlefront 2, the Star Wars game. Because that launched as a real shit show, and to be fair, there wasn't anywhere else it could go but up from that rock bottom state. But they've done such a good job of supporting it and updating it and giving a lot of player requested features, like stuff from certain time periods and skins and maps and all that. And then Battlefield, DICE's flagship franchise, they've just kind of dropped the ball on.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's a type of game that I would be primed to enjoy, right? It's set in the World War II. It's one of my favorite genres in terms of first-person shooter in World War II. It's bread and butter for me. Like, I'm really interested in getting this game. However, with all this bullshit around, how they're dealing with this, and the spongy, I just hate spongy players. I mean, 2 headshots and they're still not dead.
The double tap.
I mean, you would need numerous headshots for these players. I just don't get it. Like, and for that reason, I would never ever entertain getting this game. It looks great. The game looks great. However, how it's been supported really puts me off. The fact that there's microtransactions in there, all these rewards linked to Boynes or whatever, it's just totally and utterly repellent to me. I'm just not interested in that at all. However, the game itself just looks great. If only it would be great, or I don't know. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
The whole thing is just such a nothing post, like, as well as the things of them saying stupid stuff. Like, there's no information, there's no dates of like, oh, here's when this thing is going to launch, here's when we're going to get stuff. It's just, well, don't worry about all the bad stuff we've done because we think we've done good stuff. Have some content. We're promising content. What kind of content? Oh, well, you'll find out soon. To be decided.
Yeah, and who's guessing? Who's putting good money on the fact that they'll nerf the guns again towards Christmas?
Exactly. Well, no doubt there'll be, chapter 7 or something, so update 5.2 will come out and it'll nerf all the weapons again. But anyway, that's just what we think about this Battlefield 5 situation. Make sure to watch our previous video on it, which was all about the initial first nerf, or the third nerf. I can't remember which one it was now.
The second nerf.
One of the many nerfs that have happened.
Yeah.
Make sure to check that out in addition to this one to give you the full context. Leave a comment down below to tell us if you're pissed off about all the changes happening to Battlefield 5. Do you like the game and the setting, but just these fundamental problems and lack of understanding from the devs getting in the way? Leave a like, hit subscribe, and of course the bell. Go on over to patreon.com/prettygoodgaming.